That's all right. Let me see.
Okay, working. Prashant, are we ready? Everyone's in. Good morning. Thank you for being here. We have 535 plus registrations for the event. We are hoping a lot more people will keep trickling in, and we're hoping that the sessions planned today will be productive and with lots of people who are here to learn from, be part of the community. So let's see. Let's wish for the best. But this is also the first time that speakers from, I think, 7 cities are here under one roof, from Chennai, Pune, Kolkata, Bangalore, Dharamshala, Delhi, and Hyderabad. So in some sense, this is a sort of a little bit of a landmark event, if you like. We did not have Dries this year to pull in crowds. We had Jacob. And we're still pulling in the crowds. So there were thoughts about scaling back the event, not actually making an India-wide event, not, having a small Drupal camp. There were recommendations. But it took a lot of self-belief to say that let's stick our neck out. You want to have a DrupalCon international level, maybe even a scaled-down version in 2014, like the one happening in Sydney in February. Then you need to do some practice. You need to go out, stick your neck out, and say that we will attempt it. Whether we succeed or fail, we'll see. But so a few of us, a core team of 4 or 5 people actually did. Just to mention a few names in that, Ishan is outside, Prashant, Gaurav, he's been central to all the mailers and spams that you've been receiving. Ani in organizing all these things together. So just these 4 or 5 people we've had very few volunteers. That's unfortunate. Hopefully, in the next events in other cities, we will be able to pull in more volunteers from different companies, individuals who are working with Drupal. So we're hoping this is a start. And, the conversation around DrupalCon 2012, 13, it's been every year there are talks about it, and years keep moving forward. So, my invitation to everyone here, especially people from different companies, different cities here, is that let's get our act together and organize events like these going forward at a lot of frequency in various cities if we really want to get to 2014, which we should with a DrupalCon. Lots of great speakers today, by the way. I want to thank Deepen, Sumit coming from Pune, Kolkata, Shamla from Chennai, Jacob Singh from Bangalore. If you guys don't know, Acquia has set up a small country office in India, and Jacob heads it. He's the regional director. You could call him the country director as well. Can I? Whatever you want. Okay. So, Jacob, over to you. And we have a little shift in the lecture halls. We had problems in lecture hall 2, which is moved to lecture hall 3. So this is displayed outside. The toilets and the drinking water facilities are right in the corner of the hall. You can, find water and, toilets over there. Any other important things for now? Yeah. We are very short of charge points. So we've laid out cables. Please do share them among each other. If you need to use your laptop, please tweet vigorously. Yeah, Gaurav has announced a 2,000 rupee award somewhere if he's around for the highest Twitterer. Yeah, we are also live streaming and we'll be recording all the events. Thank you. Sorry? Okay. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. How about now? Yeah? All right. It's not booming, but it'll do. So who wants to alienate all of their Twitter followers for 2,000 rupees? Anybody? I'm not sure if mine are worth it. That's about a rupee per follower. I don't know. They're a little better than that. For 3,000, I might do it. Is it going to work? Cool. So, hi, everyone. Thanks for coming down to Delhi, doing this. This is fantastic. These guys just, like a month ago, I think, month and a half ago, Rahul was like, we need to do it again this year, Drupal Camp Delhi. We did it last year, we should do it again. And I said, okay, so what are you going to do, though? He's like, everything, sponsors and the whole thing and a big convention center. And I said, there's no time for that. It's crazy. It'll never happen. But Rahul is crazy, and things do happen with him somehow. I've found that out over the years. I've actually known Rahul for many years. I believe I got him into Drupal. He landed one Drupal project by accident, and he said, I'm really in trouble. Help me out here. And I sort of talked to his team a bit. That was 6 years ago. So I've been a part of the Drupal community for a long time. And I was also a Dilliwala for many years. So many people don't know that. I lived in Delhi for about 5 years, did a couple different stints. Been in the US for a couple, but just came back, and now I've set up in Bangalore. And I'm not going to get into the whole Delhi-Bangalore feuding type. Well, they're basically the same, except for Bangalore's better in just about every way you could think. Except for all of you. It's good that you're all here in Delhi. Anyway, let's see. We'll find out. I've just been there 2 months. So as I said, Rahul said, I work for Acquia. Acquia is the company founded by the founder of Drupal. I've been there about 4 years, and I've been in the Drupal community about 6. And during that time, I don't know if some of you are aware. Well, actually, let me start with this. Would you everyone raise your hand if you've been using Drupal for less than a year? Or not at all? If you've never even used Drupal, you know nothing about it. And less than a year? All right. Okay, now what about people less than 2 years? Or sorry, more than a year. More than a year. A few of you, 2 years. What about more than 5 years? A few. What about more than 6? There's like 3 or 4 people out here. So you can see how what's happened here, right? There's just been a few people who have been around that long. There's been a massive growth in the last 6 years in Drupal. So much growth that we don't even stop to think about it oftentimes. And that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. We're going to just talk about growth. It's all about growth. And growth takes on many forms. There's growth of a community. So like, I remember the first Delhi Drupal meet, I think. We had like 6 people. They were all from Rahul's office, and they were all staying just for the tea and cookies. All right, that was our first Drupal meet. And then today, we have this conference hall, which we hope will get packed soon, but it's still a pretty good number. A lot of people have shown up for this from all over the country. And there's going to be another one in Mumbai, and another one in Hyderabad, another one in Bangalore. I actually keep track of the number of community events in India and the participants, and we're growing like mad. It's really impressive. That's community. And then we're going to talk about individual growth. So as a developer, what it's done for me in my job, how I got started, and what happened to me. You know, what my growth has been being a part of an open source project. And then finally, I'm going to talk to you about commercial growth. What does it mean to grow an ecosystem, an economy? It's all great to grow as an individual and grow as a community, but at the end of the day, I need to put something back here. And let's talk about how that's happening in Drupal, and specifically how it's happening in India, which I think is the most relevant to all of you. So starting with, this is the big international DrupalCon in 2005. 30 geeks huddled in some dodgy room in Belgium talking about their open source content management system that nobody cared about. Similar sized group, Drupal Camp Dhaka, 2011. This is in Senegal, yeah? There's about 30 people. sitting around talking about Drupal once a year. Now they have about 50 or 60 people coming to this. This is DrupalCon Denver from earlier in the spring. Actually, this is about maybe a third or a fifth of DrupalCon Denver. 3,000 people packed the biggest convention center in Denver for a massive DrupalCon, sponsored by Microsoft, sponsored by Google, Oracle, all these big names you know, and lots of Drupal shops, consulting firms, everything in between. If you look at Drupal now, there's 900,000 plus active community members on Drupal.org. That's filtering out spam accounts or anything else. There's 900,000 users, actual users on Drupal.org. There's been 16,000 people who have committed some kind of code to Drupal. That's a pretty big number, isn't it? Yeah. That makes Drupal the largest open source project in history. In terms of the number of contributors, it's bigger than Linux, it's bigger than GNU, bigger than KDE, bigger than MySQL. In terms of the number of contributors, that's a huge community. We take it for granted sometimes, but we're actually part of something rather historic. Just quickly, if you're into charts, if that's your thing. This is the users on Drupal.org since 2003 when it launched, up until now. You can watch that growth rate. Or to put it another way, in 2007, there were 70,000 users on Drupal.org, and now there's 900,000. That's 60% growth per year, year on year, on average, over the last 5 years. If you look at contributors, it's actually even more impressive. There were 700 people in 2007. Now, this is 2007. I'd already been doing Drupal for a year and a half, and I felt like the growth is over. There's already an established sort of senior technical leadership team. What do I have to contribute? I'm a nobody. There's already 700 of them. Wow, was I wrong about that? There's 17,000 now. That's 70% growth per year of people coming involved and moving from being consumers to being producers, to building some code. And this is not all contributors. These are only contributors who commit code to the version control. And it's been pretty phenomenal to watch. And somehow it hasn't slowed down. I keep saying it's going to. I'm very much a pessimist. I keep saying, oh, Drupal's done. Everything's going to be Node.js and Ruby soon. It's not happened. PHP still is 70% of the web. Okay, so those are just numbers. That's data. That shows, I think, empirically that Drupal's growing and huge. Let's look at some individuals. How have individuals, their lives have been changed by this? Anyone know who this is? Nobody? Dries? Did someone say Dries? Web chick. Also to Angela Byron. So what does Angie Byron do? Anyone know? Can anyone say anything about her? Yeah. She's the maintainer of Drupal 7 core. I mean, she's like the boss, basically. Other than Dries, but she's actually Dries' boss, if you know the internal politics. So that's her. So how do you think you get to a position like that? By having a vision. You got to be good technically, right? You got to like go to MIT or something. Your parents should be connected, should have some kind of in at a senior level. Angie Byron was a community college student. I also went to community college. Do you guys know what community college is? It's a US thing. Oh yeah, bad movies, right. You saw that TV show, Community. Yeah. So community college is where you go if either your grades weren't good enough or your parents didn't have enough money or you had to work and you couldn't go to a full-time sort of school, you go to community college. I know because I went to one. She was a community college student. She got into Google Summer of Code. I think a couple of you, who here is a Google Summer of Code participant? Just one, two of you. Okay, good, both of you. So Google Summer of Code is a program where Google pays you to work on an open source project. So she got into that, and she worked on Drupal. A couple years later, she made a name for herself in the community as a doer, as a helper, as a mentor. She became the Drupal 7 maintainer. She was named Contributor of the Year by the Free Software Foundation. And now she's in Acquia Senior Management, and she runs all of our community affairs and works on R&D stuff in Drupal 8. Massively successful. She's on the cover of Linux Journal, for God's sakes, right? First woman to ever be on the cover of Linux Journal. Amazing person. Another example. Anyone know who this guy is? CHX. That was quick. you know how to pronounce his actual name? No, I spent an hour with him on Skype a couple of days ago trying to get it right. So, it's Karoli Ingesi. He's a Hungarian, and he's pretty much a wild character. He, 2004, he was a math teacher in Hungary at high school. He made so little money that he couldn't afford his own place to live. He had to borrow money from his parents to go to Brussels to that Drupal camp that we saw on the first slide. He borrowed money, he stayed on couches, he met with people. That's what his life was. Hungary is not all that different economically than India. I mean, it's European Union and everything like that, but the opportunities are very much less there. 2006, he had a hot startup job in Vancouver, working for Now Public, which is community-built journalism. They were acquired by Examiner.com, which is a top 100 web property, and he was the lead architect rebuilding Examiner.com. He probably has pots of money now from the buyout. I don't know, but he does whatever he wants. And whatever he wants is pretty much hack on Drupal 24/7. That's his life. But you can see, for him, it took only a couple of years for his life to change very dramatically. This is a more recent one. I bet no one knows who this is. Does anybody know who this is? No. His name is Brian Braun. So some of you know this about me. I'm a geek. I mean, I programmed lots. I also worked in training. So I designed curriculum, and I led our training program for freshers at Acquia, taking new people and training them up. And I gave a presentation about that program at DrupalCon Denver. And this young guy, Brian, approached me afterwards. He said, I'm just graduating from college, and I really want to join your program next year. I said, okay, great. Give me your resume or business card or whatever, and we'll get in touch. He did something a little different than that. You can see he shaved his head. He had his wife paint his head blue. He made these little glasses, and he dressed up as a Drupalicon. Not only that, he made Facebook ads, which were specifically targeted to Acquia employees who were on Facebook, telling them to hire him and that he would solve all their problems. And he did this photo shoot and sent us these pictures of him. Now, he didn't get a job. But he got Dries' attention. He got my attention. He got other Acquia management's attention. And it's just because there wasn't a job really available for him at the time that made sense. But now, about 6 months later, he got a call. And now he's managing one of our most important customers in Washington, D.C., who shall not be named. But anyway, he's working on a very prestigious project. He loves it. And he basically, his timeline was a lot more compressed. Right? He had a portfolio. He had skills. It wasn't just that he's good at marketing himself. He actually had ability and proof. But if you do it the right way, you can go to the top very quickly. So let me just take a little break. So all of that, you might be saying, TK, that's your America, that's your Europe, everyone's fancy there, they do fancy things. Right? Yay, India. Yahan pe nahi hota hai. You join the bench at TCS, you sit there for 10 years, and then maybe you become a junior manager, and then a senior manager, and then a manager's manager. You get a little corner cube, whatever. I've heard it said to me that, who here knows about test-driven development? Anyone know what test-driven development is? Just a couple of you? Just one? Nobody here has heard the term TDD? Test-driven development? Few? Okay. It's the idea that you write the test before the code. Right. I've heard it said to me that in India, you don't have TDD, you have SDD. Anyone know what SDD is? No? That's right. Shadi-driven development. Which is basically that, people will work for the companies, which will get them the best offers. Now, I know it's a gross generalization, but I think there's some truth in it. Is that true? Okay. As an example, so I'm not speaking totally ignorantly, I worked for a startup many years ago. And I employed this young guy named Sinoop. And he was great. He used to come to my house every day, and we'd hack on PHP code. We'd build up this startup. And I was mentoring him, and he was enjoying it, and I enjoyed his company. And we were working together, and it was great. At some point, I decided that I wanted to move back to the US and go to college. Not community college, big college. I said, okay. I said, Sinoop, you've done a great job. Do you want to be the boss? You want to take over this project? You be the technical director. You'll make more money than you'll make anywhere else as a one-year experienced guy here in Delhi. You get to work on code that you own. Maybe you'll build a team if we're successful. I said, yeah. I left. A month later, I stopped seeing emails. I stopped seeing check-ins. I had to track him down, and I found out he had taken a job with IBM and disappeared to Singapore or something. And I was like, and I finally got a hold of him. I was like, why'd you do that, man? Like, what's your problem? You at least tell me. He says, I didn't like it. I said, well, are you making more money there? He says, no. I said, are you enjoying the work more? No. I have no mentorship or anything. I just sort of write some lousy SQL queries all day. So why'd you do that? Basically auntie, mother pressure, right? Parental pressure to have that brand name stamp on him that says, I worked for IBM, And I think that's pretty common, isn't it? We'll make decisions here based on that. And so one of the challenges that we find in open source in Drupal is it's looked at with a certain stigma. This isn't a real career. This is what you do if you don't make it to IBM or don't make it to Oracle. Henna? Is there some truth to that? I think I've found that to be the case many times. And I'm going to make the argument that that's not true, for one, and the opposite is true, two, and three, that we're rapidly accelerating towards that reality, where this is actually a much better career than those other ones. And so I've been talking a lot of stories and showing pictures and making jokes, but now it's all about data. So it's going to get really boring. If you want to pull out your laptops and phones and stuff, you can. Okay. Quiz show. Which country has the most visitors to Drupal.org? United States? You're right. There are no prizes for answering that correctly. Okay. But we're here to talk about growth. We're not talking about numbers, we're talking about growth. Which country had the largest growth in visitors from 2010 to 2011? Anyone who answers this correctly gets a free beer from me tonight. There's actually a prize. What's that? Huh? India? Any other guesses? India's the only guess? India, Philippines? China, Brazil, UK. Nobody drinks here or what? There's like 200 of you. There's only 220 countries. If you pick one, somebody's going to win. Right. Okay, but you say that's a small sample size, right? That's not really important. They grew from 10 visits to 100, 200 visits or something like that. Okay, let's get more real. This is the top 100 countries and their growth rates. Where do you see it happening? Countries like Pakistan, Nepal, Bangladesh, India, Kazakhstan, Algeria, Peru, Ecuador. This is not what you think of as the center of Drupal activity, is it? But this is where the majority of the growth is concentrated in terms of visitors to Drupal.org. And even more stark, if you look by region, in terms of the growth, does anyone notice something here from this data? Eastern Africa, Western Africa, Central Asia, Southern Asia, Melanesia. What do you not see on this chart? Yeah, North America, Europe, Australia. They're not here on this chart. The growth is largely saturated. It's still growing very quickly compared to other technologies, but with a 60-70% growth rate, it's not coming from there. The majority of it isn't coming from there anymore. It's coming from all these places. And we have to ask ourselves, why is this happening? What's the shift which has occurred? This is something we call price compression. So this is an iPhone in 2008. It cost $650. And on the right is a Micromax Ninja 2012, made in Chandigarh, I think, or designed in Chandigarh or something. $95, approximately the same specifications. In fact, the Micro Max is probably a better phone at this point. That's just a 4-year difference. Sure, the Micro Max isn't going to impress anyone at a pub, but whatever. That's a 4-year difference. Massive, massive decrease in price. And so when we talk about price compression follows that when something becomes more popular, when something becomes more mature, when it becomes more widely adopted, what happens? Like what happened when a cell phone became really widely adopted? Copies, exactly. Commoditization. It becomes something with lots of people are developing. There's no specific niche source of that anymore. And when you have commoditization, you have an increase in competition and a reduction in price, right? And that's, in a lot of senses, what drives the offshore business in India. Right? You'll find some hot new startups in India, but the vast majority of IT work here are established enterprise technologies, which have hit a point of maturity where they can offshore processes. Getting a little geeky economic, but I think you all agree with that. So here's another example. Here's another quiz. There's no prize. Well, no, there's no prize for this. It's too easy. What company has the most Drupal developers in 2012? I'm gonna give you a few options. Lullabot, Acquia, Phase 2. Those are the 3 most well-known companies probably in Drupal. You think Acquia does? It could be. It might not be these 3. No. No, not Node 1, not Wondercrowd. Node 1 is Wondercrowd. No ideas? There's no award. Capgemini. Capgemini has about 220 full-time Drupal developers on their staff right now. They have 120 in I think 100, or they have about 80 to 100 in UK and France, and they have about 120 in Bangalore and Mumbai offices here in India, and a few scattered around Kolkata and other places. Most of their team is in India. Can you guess where that team is growing, where they're growing that team? Yeah, they're growing it in India. They're not growing it in France. They'll keep staff there, but they're growing a very large Drupal practice in India. But Capgemini is not alone. All of these companies have Drupal practices. All of them are doing Drupal work. Some of them have 50, 60 people. Some of them have only 10. Some of them have 20. But they're all doing Drupal work, and they all have full-time Drupal people on their teams. I think you've heard of these names, right? These are SDD-approved sort of names, Senna? I think so. Right. All of these guys love Drupal. Now, why do they love Drupal? Are these like open source enthusiasts? Are they people who like just really love the community and sort of contributing? Some people inside these companies do, absolutely. But as a company, is that their priority? Are they like a Lullabot or an Acquia who's like in it to be part of open source? No. Why are they in it? Well, cost cutting, fine, but they're not there to create costs. What are they there to create? Profits. Right? They're trying to make money. And Drupal is heavily adopted in the enterprise now. Acquia, which provides enterprise support for Drupal, is the fastest growing software company in the United States on a revenue basis. We're number 8 overall in terms of companies in the United States, in terms of growth in the last 4 years. And there's no mistake there. It's because we have 2,500 clients, and those customers are all large enterprise customers for the most part, 80% of them. Huge companies like GE, Time, Warner, Associated Press, ING Financial, New York Stock Exchange, the White House, Twitter, Aegon, Lucent, you could go on and on and on. They're all heavily investing in Drupal. And who do those guys hire? I mean, no offense to Rahul, but do they hire a Srijan to do their work? Do they hire even a Lullabot to do their work? Maybe a little consulting. No. They hire these guys right here on that list. That's who's doing all of their work. And that's why they're investing in Drupal. And that's why it's coming to India. Which is why when we found that, we decided that we needed to have a presence in India, that India was going to be the future for us. It's extremely important. And so Dries and I came here last year, and we met a lot of you. We went to different conferences very briefly, met with some corporate customers and partners. And we saw the opportunity was large enough because these huge companies are building Drupal sites, but they're not doing a very good job of it in a lot of cases. They don't have the required expertise. And it's not that they're, unwilling to pay for that expertise. They just can't find it. People aren't available to hire. The salary of a Drupal developer in India has more than doubled in the last year, pretty much. I mean, there's such a desperate need for good Drupal developers, architects, people who really know their stuff. The people who raise their hands for the 5 and 6 year type people, but also the people like Brian, who just put in a lot of effort in a short amount of time. So how can I put one of you on my slides the next time I give this talk in a year or two? How can I put you on one of those earlier slides? How can you get there? If you're interested in getting there, how can you get there? I think I've made a good case of why it's interesting to get there. A big one is start local. There's Drupal user groups all over the world. There's hundreds of Drupal user groups that meet regularly. It's a fantastic ecosystem. It's really fun. It's so different from sitting at home poring over some stupid .NET book, trying to find which OLE object you need, and the docs are all closed, and you have no one to ask. Drupal user groups, you just show up and you talk to people, and they give you help. But more than give they help, they network you. They give you connections. You have people you can rely on to ask questions to, and they have people you can rely on. And if you need a job, you have a network of people who help you find that job. Highly encourage you to start local and attend your local groups, wherever you are. Every city in Delhi, every metro has one. Second point, move from being a consumer to a producer. This is the biggest problem in India. Do you know that India is the second largest visitor to Drupal.org? But in terms of notable Indian contributors, I can count them on one hand, and I won't even use all my fingers. It's really pathetic. There's so many technically talented people here who don't contribute, and we need to change that. If we're going to change the reputation of Indian Drupal developers, if we're going to build a huge community here, if we're going to make this a really attractive field to work in, we need to have producers. You can't just be a consumer. And this is to your advantage, right? Producing is not an act of charity. It's an investment in your future, and it's an investment in all of our future because we're all producing tools for each other that we can use. If you look at this, for Drupal 7, there was 970, 960, whatever, contributors to Drupal 7. Of those, 879 of those people only had less than 2 commits, two or 1 commit. That's it. There were 71 people who drove the vast majority of changes. So if you think that, I'll never become someone, that's ludicrous. If you spent just, a couple days, I don't know, if you spent a couple hours every day going through Drupal core, testing issues, working on issues, working up patches, in 6 months, you would easily be part of the 71. And those are the 71 most desired employees in the world for Drupal. Doesn't that sound so easy to get involved in? It's really not that hard. I mean, people are jerks. Don't get me wrong. These are socially awkward, sort of, angry open source people sometimes. You'll find those people. And they're difficult to work with. And I know that culturally, where there's a lot of Americans and Europeans who are involved in core development, they can be aggressive in a way that's not really common here. Communication styles that don't really work here, especially online. But I encourage you to look past that you will find mentors, you will find allies, you will find people who will want to work with you if you stick with it. And I can say that there's no better thing you could do for your career than to move from being a consumer to a producer. And forget your career, it's the only thing which has kept me motivated in this field. It's the most fun. It's the best reason to be involved in it, really, is to be able to build tools and watch other people use them. I mean, if you're not doing that, there's no point doing web development. I'll be honest, building business websites, it's not very technically exciting work compared to building robots or cell phones or something like that. However, working with this community is extremely rewarding. So I've made the point about 10 times, but I'm going to make it again. Go find somewhere you can plug in. And that will lead to another step, which is having a mentor. And I think this is one area also where working with Drupal has a huge advantage over proprietary technologies. Does anyone here use Java? Anyone a Java programmer? Studied it in college at least? Knows some Java? I think everybody here studied Java in college. Okay, there's about 50 people raise their hands. Now raise your hand if you've ever talked to James Gosling. Right. I could get you on the line with Dries. Dries is not a James Gosling, but my point is, you can meet any of these people. If you hop on IRC right now on your computer, what time is it? Yeah. I'm sure Angie's still awake. She lives on the West Coast. Go on IRC, type in webchick, hi, I'm listening to Jacob talk. I want to work on some Drupal issues. And she'll get back to you, and she will find you something to work on, and she'll hook you up with a mentor. You can do it right now. It'll happen. CHX, the same thing. And about 100 other people who are all community leaders. Where are you going to find that if you go work for Microsoft, or you go work at Accenture, sitting on a bench with 1,000 people or on some small team? You're never going to find it. It's only through an open source project like this, and only through being a contributor, that you're going to be able to find access to these high-level mentors, and from all around the world, global connections. Look at CHX. He's sitting there in Hungary like, what am I doing? My career, I have nothing going for me. And a year later, he's sitting in Vancouver, and 2 years later, he's in a penthouse in Vancouver that he paid for in cash. How'd that happen? It happened through his mentors, his connections. He can make those connections. And you can too. It's not at all impossible. Finally, you're going to have to promote yourself. This is also a huge problem in India. And it's understandable. It's a good quality. In general, people are humble. They're team players. They want to, they don't want to talk about themselves. It's culturally not very acceptable, I think, to be talking about yourself extensively. But you got to do it anyway, because if you want people to hear you, what Brian did, that kind of thing, you're going to need to talk about yourself. And that means getting on Twitter. That means getting on IRC. That means, writing blog posts, going to conferences, learning to do what I'm doing. I'm not Barack Obama. I'm not particularly eloquent, but I'm better than I used to be. I can sit up here and talk to you without much preparation and not be nervous. So you're going to need to do those things if you really want to make it to a high level with Drupal. And that's the end of my talk. So thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. A couple things to note. I am hiring. So if you're interested in working with Acquia India, you can come grab a card. You can grab a card anyway. I got them up here. Please do get in touch. We're hiring for different positions, but primarily looking for more senior folks to start the team. But at any rate, please do stay in touch. Like Webchick, I will also answer you on Twitter. If I'm on IRC, I'll answer you on IRC. You can find me anytime. Thank you. And you can fire away questions if you like. Yeah. Yeah. Uh-oh. What disappointed me? Yeah. I think what disappointed me the most, so he's asking, I've been around, I've met lots of both enterprises and small shops and gone to community meetups. What's disappointing? I'm going to turn that around and put it more like a positive executive spin on that. Where do I see the most potential? I think the most potential really is we need people to start. treating Drupal not as a tool they're using to accomplish their job, but as a platform for building their career. We need people who are dead serious and who have an agenda and are going to build something meaningful for the world at large. We're going to really plug into the community and build big stuff. Really well-known modules. And that starts small. You don't start with the big thing. You start with the small thing. But I think the biggest issue I see is that for most small shops, they hire people, they're PHP guys, they learn a little Drupal, they don't really care to learn it very well, and they don't really keep bringing their skills to the next level. And with Drupal, the only way to bring your skill to the next level, in my opinion, is to start getting involved and contributing. And I just don't see enough of that. With the vast amount of people we have, and I think the opportunity available if they do so, that's what we need to encourage the most. Yeah. Well, actually, the biggest problem is hiring, is that no one can hire good Drupal talent. That's the biggest problem. Anyway, any other questions? Yeah.
What sort of thing you're planning ahead in India? So,
what is Acquia doing in India?
Yeah.
Okay. So I have three large goals in India and one small one. And if you put them out in a spreadsheet that my boss looks at, there's like 20. And he gets on my case about how I'm doing on all of them. The three big ones would be partner enablement is the big one. So, like I said, we work with all these huge companies. They're all doing Drupal. A lot of them are not doing it very well. They don't have the in-house expertise. And so we would be helping them, training their teams, not so much training, but more professional services, so architecting sites with them. So if Accenture lands a big Drupal project, we would send a consultant in from our office in India to help them with that project for a couple weeks to get them started, that kind of thing. And that's the professional services side of it. Then there would be pre-sales. So again, a lot of these companies, they do their sales from India as well. So they have to put together a proposal and everything. So helping them with that, helping them sell Drupal effectively. And that's not just the huge companies. I also do that with companies like Srijan and Osri and others when they need to work on a project here. So they contact me and I help them make that pitch. That's our biggest priority. Other priorities is pretty much we're looking to train an army here. So we want to find ways that we can enable our partners to deliver mass trainings. So we really there's not a lot of training opportunities. So I'm blaming India for having low quality Drupal developers, but there aren't really opportunities to learn. Or if there are, they're not very high quality ones oftentimes. Some people are autodidacts. They learn on their own. They have the initiative, but a lot of people need a little bit of a bump as well. So providing greater training opportunities. We're trying to put together something with IEEE. I'm going to start launching free trainings at Drupal colleges all around the country. They're already doing it, but we're going to do it with Acquia and start rolling out that at scale. So we're trying to really seed the next generation of Drupal talent. And then finally, it's this. It's building the community here. It's going to meetups, helping to connect developers here with developers elsewhere, promoting Drupal as a center of excellence promoting India as a center of excellence for Drupal, getting Indian developers at international Drupal cons, raising the profile. Those are the main goals. As a fourth, very small goal, there's some domestic business. It's not big, but I do some sales calls in India as well. Yeah, that's about it. Anybody else? Are we out of time? Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
Check. Yeah. Hi. My team is working with Drupal from last 1.5 years. We started with 7 sites, and now we are literally engulfed many sites in our corporate circle. Now it's 21. What really I find an issue with Drupal is sometimes when requirements are laid in front of us that are really innovative and out of the scope of Drupal, that's the time when we have to switch from Drupal.org to some other big sites like you can say stackoverflow.com or something like that. So there are many things in Drupal.org which restricts our innovative functionalities, what I find like. So I would like to ask this question, means if we are discovering or if we are making something new which have not been in Drupal.org or in the market, then I think it's restricting me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll share an example. One of the latest requirement that we have from our client was like having a slider, image slider, with a light box, and whose thumbnail shows the videos, and when you click on the thumbnail, means it should open all the QuickTime players, QuickTime formats, FLV format, and everything. On Drupal.org, I really find it very hard to resolve this QuickTime thing, getting engrossed in this Drupal site that we have already developed. So there we have to go there we went out of scope, and we created some modules with the help of some of the community, Twitter people, especially from US. But there I got to get out of scope of this Drupal.org.
Okay, so that's a good question. I mean, Drupal is not. It's not intended that Drupal is a finished product for every type of software you can build. That would be kind of a ridiculous claim. So on any large Drupal project, you're going to write custom code. The less custom code you can write, the better. But it's going to happen. There's Drupal projects now that go for £7 million. So in a £7 million Drupal project, they're not just pulling modules off of Drupal.org and installing them naturally. There's a million lines of custom code there or whatever. So there's integrations with SAP, CRM systems, and there's integrations with Salesforce and all kinds of other systems. Now, what you'll find in the Drupal community is that you will get 90% for free. That last 10% is going to require some effort on your part and some skill, and a lot of skill. So it's not that Drupal, I would say, in my personal opinion, is lacking so much. It's that you have to find the talent, either the people or learn it yourself, to be able to do that last 10% in Drupal. One thing that makes that a lot easier is that, say you're, I don't know about your particular case, but say you have to integrate with, I'm trying to think of a good example, like NetSuite. NetSuite's a CRM system that's used. And there's some basic integration available on Drupal.org, but I don't think it's quite finished. It's sort of half done. There's bugs. People complain about that. For Drupal 6 only? So you guys know about this, right? So one way to look at that is to go there and see that and say, we can't do it in Drupal. Throw up our hands. Another way to do it is to go at it, look around on Stack Overflow, grab some code, cut and paste it in your project, call it done. It's a buggy mess that you can't maintain, but it's done. A better way to look at it, another way that scenario plays out, is that you take that Drupal 6 module, you upgrade to Drupal 7, you make a patch for it, you put it in the issue queue. You get an IRC, and no one's paying attention to that issue. It's just sitting there. You get an IRC. You start asking the maintainer. You look around. You find the Salesforce maintainer, and you ask them. You already have connections because you've been doing this for a while, and they look at your code, and they review it. And then all of a sudden, you find the maintainer, and you say, I built this Drupal 7 port. It's been reviewed by X, Y, and Z. You're not really maintaining it. Can I take over this? And they say, sure, you can. And all of a sudden, you're the maintainer of the NetSuite 7 module. Now, you blew your project budget out of the water. Granted, I understand. I worked in consulting. You blew your budget doing that. So what happens when someone else needs a NetSuite integration done on the Drupal site? What do they do now? Maybe they download your module, and they just use it. That's great. Maybe they find you, and they say, I need some help with this. Can you integrate this for me? Maybe you put that on your site, and then maybe you partner with NetSuite, and every Drupal project that they find out about, they send your way. It's not just about altruism. It's not just about it's a good thing to do. It's actually crucial to your Drupal business if you're going to be successful that you need to make investments like that. Not just build custom code, which you will always have to do, but build things that you can put back, that you can contribute back. It has a lot of benefits. That's what I would say. It's not an easy road. It just requires work. You got to learn the systems, the APIs, all of that. Or hire someone who does, if you can find them. If I could, I wouldn't tell you, because I'm looking for them. Yeah.
And actually, we are working for the National Portal of India, which is going to be launched on Monday in Drupal 6. what is the biggest challenge we are facing in that is with the performance issues.
Sorry, say again?
National Portal of India, that is india.gov.in,
Yeah.
which is going to be launched on Monday. It's on Drupal 6. So what are the biggest issues we have faced with that? It has a huge performance issue with the user loads. Actually, in India portal, we have more than 1,000 concurrent users at a time on the portal. So now it's running on plain PHP, but when we migrated into Drupal 6, so now what we are facing, when the cache is on or there is a caching page is coming on, then it's fine. But for other pages, it took a lot of time and lot of effort to bring that onto the portal. So can you suggest some team or somebody who can work on the server infrastructure, or we can get what should be the best infrastructure? We have the best infrastructure. We have servers with more than 128 GB of RAMs and all that. But I don't know what is the issue with that, or maybe we are not able to configure that thing. But we are facing a biggest challenge with the performance in Drupal.
So why do you think that Acquia is the fastest growing software company in the United States?
For enterprise solutions, I think.
Yeah. That's what we do. I mean, that's what we do for a lot of customers. Big governments, big corporates. So you can talk to me about it, whatever. I suppose you work for NIC, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So I don't know, if you're looking for someone in India or cheaper or whatever, but you can talk to me about it. We can help with that. We do that all the time.
Because
I can't give you specifics. You just said we have a site which is in an old version of Drupal, and when you have a lot of users, it gets slammed. I can't really give you any specific advice for that. It's going to require someone to dig in, look at the code, and look at the architecture.
Another problem is with the upgradation of the site. If you go from Drupal 6 to 7, so you have to do a lot of things to migrate. So there should be a lighter way to do that. Like in other, like in WordPress or some other CMS,
Yeah. Well,
it's easy to upgrade.
No, it's true. And the difference between WordPress and Drupal that way is that it's twofold. And in Drupal, that's very intentional. So backwards compatibility is broken very intentionally. In WordPress, it's maintained. And the reason is that in Drupal, there's a priority on the best, leanest code in every version. And if you try to drag along code and data structures from an old version, you're going to end up with Microsoft Windows, in some time. I know you'll have code written 10 years ago that no one knows how it works or what it does, and it's sucking up juice and nobody knows why. So that's very intentional, that backwards compatibility is broken. Not as in we try to break it, but it's intentional that we don't bother about it. Also WordPress is a great blogging tool. If you want something more than a blog, you'll end up with a very customized version, which you also can't upgrade. Mm-hmm. So I think that's not necessarily a fair comparison. Drupal is a framework. It's not a product which has a strict upgrade path and everything like that. So ultimately, there's some risk you absorb there. But there's also a lot of great tools to solve that problem. There's the migrate module. There's various upgrade scripts people write. There's different ways to automate that. So I find with the right expertise, it can be done. One thing I recommend to a lot of customers, if they start with an old version of Drupal, is to start maintaining a parallel check schedule. So every week, check to see if you could migrate it to 7 or what it would take. Just have some idea of the effort as you go along. So as you're building it, you know that you're building something you can migrate later. It's helpful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. Hey Jacob, Weber here. So recently Drupal 9 branch was also committed about 2 days back by Reese. Now in Drupal 8 we saw it's moving to Oops and Symfony. So question related to that, why we are moving to Oops and why Symfony?
Good question. So yeah, Drupal 8 has a vastly different architecture than Drupal 7. Yep. You guys don't know. And I think it's a great thing. For the record, I hate Drupal. Like, when I first started, I hated Drupal. Now I like it. It's okay. But when I first started, I didn't go to school for computer science, but I self-taught myself design patterns and sort of object-oriented design, and I was pretty big into that. I was one of those guys. And I saw Drupal, I was like, this is a total mess. It's all over the place. It doesn't follow any standards. What is this? And it's a lot of the complaints that the sort of hipster hacker community says about Drupal. I've learned that that's not that relevant, actually. The language you use is not that relevant. Your architecture is not that relevant. It's about the community that you work with. That's going to guide really whether the project is going to be a success or not, most often. But beyond that, yeah, so Drupal 8 has a massive influx of object-oriented programming design patterns. It's using Symfony, which is a different PHP framework, as its core. It's a great alliance for a couple of reasons. One is that it bridges the gap. So there's a lot of PHP developers who work in PHP, are good at PHP, but they don't want to work in Drupal because Drupal does not follow patterns that they're used to. It's not written the same way. They don't like it. With Symfony, we're going to bring all those people into the fold. So all of these Symfony, Cake, PHP, Zen type developers are going to be more interested in using Drupal now because the APIs are more accessible to them. It's in a language they can understand better. Secondly, the system's a lot more testable. It's a lot more lean. The focus on Drupal 8 has really been about making the system very lean. So the stated focus is mobile. But under mobile, there's a lot of different areas. And one of them is you should be able to request a very small amount of data specific in the system in one web request very quickly. And Drupal was always kind of bad at that. It would bootstrap all this stuff. With the Symfony framework, we're able to reduce that a lot. So web services become a lot faster, and that will affect how we build mobile apps, how we build content distribution networks and such. I think those are the primary changes that Symfony will bring. To answer your question? Good? Yeah. Ultimately, I think it's a very good thing. Yeah. Done? Good. All right. Thanks, everybody.